Corporal Werner Katzenstein, United States Army, World War II. Folks, I've got a very rare and unique story for you here. Werner was German born and he ended up serving with the United States Army in World War II with the 100th Infantry Division of the 7th Army as a corporal, and it's amazing. His family, they went through the Holocaust. Some of them didn't leave Europe. He was fortunate to leave Europe in 1939. But just what he went through as a young boy growing up as a Jewish German, and everything that was imposed upon them reminds me of what's happened the last 3 years in our country. All the mandates, the forced mandates, and the tyranny. And he lived through it as a young boy, and he survived it all. Like I said, he went on to serve in the United States Army. His unit received a Bronze Star for their actions in World War II. And just one of my Holocaust survivors. He volunteered at the Holocaust Museum. He passed away in 2015. He was 86 at the time of the interview, made it in 93. And these are haunting voices. I listened to his story today as I put this video together, and I listened to it again. And it's just amazing what these people went through. And you ask them about freedom. They know what freedom is because they didn't have freedom for many years. You ask a young person today what freedom means to them, and they kind of give you a blank stare and they tilt their head. Not because they're bad, but because they've always had freedom. They were born in a free country. Just the contrast, the difference of Werner growing up under communism, under socialism, Marxism, tyranny, and then kids today being born in a free country. You know, I've said this before, we're losing a lot of our freedoms, folks, and I'm not going to get political here, but we need to fight for our veterans and fight for the freedoms that we have and stand up and take a stand in the day that we live in. Okay. I want to thank Chet Howard. Chet, salute you. I love working with Chet. He sponsored several of my stories. He's helping me finish re-editing my Holocaust film. It's called Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Remembered. And folks, we need to watch this at least once in life. I used to run from the Holocaust story, but not anymore after I've interviewed all these survivors. But Chet's helping me finish the editing of that, and I'm going to release that hopefully this year. But thank you, Chet, again for your commitment to my work, our veterans, and this country. God bless you. Folks, if you'd like to sponsor a story like Chet did, there's information in the video description, and there's information on my website, larrycapetto.com. You can click on the link that says Sponsor a Vet at the top of the page. You'll see pictures of my veterans, and just choose one, include their name in the sponsorship. If you'd like to donate to my work, there's information in the comments section of this video. Voices of History Radio is on the air, going strong, and now in over 20 countries across the world. And it's really ramping up, folks. A lot of people are listening to it. It's listener supported. It's a free app on the Google and Apple Play stores. And it's just wonderful to be able to have living history in the palm of our hands. As we approach another school season, we need to get this in the hands of our children, our teachers, and let them know that it's out there. It's just such a tremendous history lesson. A lot of you are learning so much about Vietnam, Korea, World War II, and now Iraq, Afghanistan, stories that, you know, they've been there, and now it's coming together like pieces of a puzzle as we're hearing these different stories. So, Werner, I salute you, sir. Thank you for telling me your story. I was in Silver Spring, Maryland in February of 2009. That's February 8th. I interviewed him. And that was the time I was interviewing Holocaust survivors that are mostly now gone, folks. But, you know, it did happen, and the stories live on. There's too much evidence and proof that it didn't happen. People are trying to erase our history. I'm bringing history firsthand accounts. Amen. Thank you for subscribing to this channel and sharing these videos, and thank you for watching. God bless you.
I'm old, 86.
You're 86.
Am I, Inge?
That's okay.
I was born in 22.
Yeah, that's fine. That's just a general question. Now, you're a survivor.
Yes.
Of the whole.
Yes.
Do you volunteer at the museum?
Yes, my wife and I worked together.
Where were you born, Werner?
I was born in a little town in Germany. You heard of the Pied Piper of Hameln? In that county, my father was a manager for a business, and that's where I was born.
Okay. And so, what year were you born in? Did you say
1922.
22. Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about your family growing up, and then getting.
The family business was farm supply, and that goes back generations. And that they had business with the farmers. They bought from them, they sold to them, and eventually, 1935, they weren't allowed to do business with my father anymore. So that for us it was time to think of leaving Germany. I mean, Hitler came to power in '33, and for us things started in 1933 in our county. Every single Jewish man was put in a county jail, and they were mistreated and so on. My father didn't talk about it much, but he wanted to leave Germany right then and there. And my mother said, I was born here and you want me to leave? So he gave in to her and stayed in business until about 1935, and then we left Germany in 1937 to go to Holland. We lived in Germany right at the Dutch border, and we went to Holland in '37, and then again he wanted to keep going, but my father, he met a Jewish attorney in Amsterdam. He wanted to get a visa to go to England to set up a training farm for a Jewish organization. He said, you're a farmer, yes. Well, you go to the United States. You don't go to England. My father said, how could I? I'm not even registered in the quota. And he told him that as a skilled farmer, you will be automatically inserted in the quota. And that happened to us in 1939. Came to the United States in 1939, and we had a farm in New Jersey, not far from Philadelphia. And again, 39, then we came to the United States in '39. And then shortly afterwards, the war broke out, and I was drafted as an enemy alien. I became a citizen in the army. And then we left. I know June 9th, 1939, when the World's Fair was going on, we went on to the United States. And we had many relatives there already. But then again, we went into farming in New Jersey. And
well, let's go back to the 30s. I mean, growing up, did you have a normal childhood?
Actually, there was such a thing, but not much, you know. There weren't many other Jewish kids in town, and the others weren't allowed to play with us.
Well, were you, when Hitler came to power, even before that, as a young boy, were you afraid of the Nazis and all that?
No, I tell you, I went to high school, which was voluntarily, and I had to go on the train about 10 miles, and all the kids traveled together. And the moment Hitler came to power, I was an outcast. They went and beat me up on the train, they chased me through the train, and eventually things settled down, but nothing was really normal.
He became chancellor, is that correct, Hitler?
Right.
And I'm assuming over the years he he was a very charismatic person, a good orator, so he was able to get a lot of support, the propaganda.
Yeah, there was a lot of propaganda and and he persuaded the people to do things the way he wanted it.
And he had, is there a difference between the SS, the Nazis, the Gestapo, is that?
Well, Gestapo is secret state police, and SS was a party organization. And the SR, Sturmabteilungen, they were different organizations, but they all went out and beat up people that didn't suit them. It wasn't pleasant. As I said, my father was arrested in '33 and was not pleasant.
Were there members of your family that were left behind that didn't come to America or that were taken away out of their homes in the '30s?
I tell you, I have some that came and some that got put in the concentration camps and killed. I know my father had 2 sisters and they got married to 2 brothers, and one came to the United States and the other one didn't. They got killed.
So, you know, as I talk to people about what happened, it just seems like as the years progressed into the '30s up till 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland, was it a progression of things happening? I mean, things were already happening before 1939.
Right. Well, look, I left Germany in '39, so I really can't tell much what happened afterwards. My wife was younger and had other experiences, and she remembers things that I'm not so aware of. You heard Kristallnacht. My wife was there. I was gone already.
But like at the museum, you volunteer at the museum.
Yes. Well, what we do there, we do translations. We people donate things to the museum, and it's in German, and they like to know what it's all about, but they can't understand it. So what we do, we translate from German into English.
Okay. Well, you want some water? Are you okay? You've walked through the museum.
Oh, many times.
Well, what's particularly striking to you? What part of the museum is the most powerful or overwhelming for you?
Well, it's that shows you the things that actually happened and what left behind, and people were, I don't know how to express it, but I know, for instance, there were exhibits of shoes and other things, and those are the things that stand out. Anybody who goes to the museum takes more time than you think. It can't be done in an hour.
No. I mean, when you see the pictures of all the children,
yes,
and the things that's overwhelming. I mean, and to see
yes,
ovens and things.
Yeah, I remember.
It's amazing what happened. I mean, I don't understand how that could happen. A lot of
well, the thing that many of us didn't quite understand is how the Germans went along with him so willingly, but it's not something to want to remember.
Yeah. Now you went into the U.S. Army.
Right.
And you were in the 100. Which group?
I was in the 100th Infantry Division of the 7th Army.
100th Infantry Division
of the 7th Army.
And you're German-born?
Yes.
How did the other Americans do that?
I became a citizen in the Army, and we had no problems whatsoever.
Well, were you able to help with the fact that you spoke German?
Oh, during combat, I interviewed prisoners and other things that they wanted to know. I mean, it was worthwhile.
What year did you go back overseas to Europe? 42, 43? What
In the Army,
Yeah, what year?
I guess it was 42, 43, yes.
Were you involved at the D-Day landings?
No, the 100th Infantry Division came as a unit, and we came in from Hoboken to the Mediterranean. We landed in Marseille, and we went from there up the Vosges Mountains, and that's where we got into combat.
Was it strange going back to your homeland or Europe?
Not at all. You know, people asked me, how does it feel like? I said, it didn't feel strange at all, because if I would have gotten it out, they would have killed me.
So you were fighting the German army?
Yes.
Boy, did you ever get in combat with them very close?
Oh, yes. Look, I mentioned it before, and one of the first battles I was in was the city of Heilbronn, which is in southern Germany. And there we actually fought door to door, house to house. The Germans just didn't want to give up. I told you I have a poem that I wrote about this battle, and that can tell more about it.
Now, you were fighting your fellow countrymen, basically. I mean,
Well, yes and no.
yes and no. And that wasn't difficult for you?
Not at all.
Why wasn't it difficult?
Because I remember well, if I wouldn't have been able to get fight against them, they would have killed me.
Yeah.
That's very simple.
So what were your thoughts about Hitler and what he was doing back then?
I knew that what he was doing was certainly it wasn't democratic. The system that he put out was certainly not good. I don't know how the German people felt, but they cooperated.
So you were in combat. How many months were you in combat?
Oh, I would say almost 2 years.
Yeah. Now you were wounded?
I got wounded.
Where were you and what happened to you?
Well, we were, you know, it's always the old saying they tell you, you take the town and the high ground beyond it. And we had taken the town, but we didn't take the high ground beyond it, and the Germans were on the high ground. And I was digging in to a foxhole because we had to, well, how shall I say it? We were supposed to defend the town, and the Germans made a counterattack. But then I got wounded, and fortunately, I did not get wounded life-threatening, but I got wounded, and there's one little example I like to use. An infantry platoon is 40 men, and I went, as I said, in the division and into combat, and when I got wounded, I went back military hospitals, and from there I went then again up front, and how shall I say it? When I came back, I went back to my outfit. I got wounded in November. I came back to my outfit in February. And when I came back, my platoon was 20 men. And of those 20, I knew 10. So you can imagine what the Lord saved me from.
So you got a Bronze Star.
Yeah.
Where were you? What did you do? What happened?
Well, combat infantry itself it told you that I had enough action and combat action so that my unit got awarded the Bronze Star. Also, there was a battalion action where the battalion commander went out in front of the unit, and that's what we got the Bronze Star for.
Now, were you in any major campaigns or landings in Europe?
No, I mean, I went, as I said, we went into the mountains, and then, look, the first casualty we had was one of our own. You have a passport, and the guy was hard of hearing, and somebody stopped him, and he didn't hear, and he got shot right then and there. Now, as I said, the Battle of Heilbronn was the most action that I was in. I was many little combats.
But you have to admit it's a pretty rare story that you're telling, and being born in Germany, coming to the United States in '39, joining the, or being drafted. Were you drafted, did you say? Or
Oh yes, I was drafted.
And then going back and fighting
yes.
the Germans. I mean, I've never heard that before. That's
oh,
amazing.
there are many others.
Are there?
Yeah, I wasn't the only one. I know others that were there too.
So you said that if you wouldn't have gone, the Germans would have killed you because of your beliefs?
Right. No, it was Jewish.
Yeah.
And they killed the Jews.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting because you served in the U.S. Army and you're a survivor. I've spoken to over 600 veterans that have served in our country, and a lot of those men helped liberate the concentration camps. Were you around during those times?
I was around, but I could say, fortunate enough, I didn't have to liberate camps.
Well, talking to a lot of them, and as Kurt said, they weren't prepared for what they saw when they
Some,
went into
yeah.
these camps.
Well, I didn't get there. I mean, when I got to them, it was mostly already over.
But it's amazing, just historically looking back, and the museum has a section of the liberators, and how that must have felt for a survivor to be liberated, although they saw a lot of the bad things that happened in those camps.
Yes, I met some of them. Look, when combat was over, I volunteered and I went into the American military government. And there I met a lot of the people that had come out of camps. Military government, we worked to reestablish German civilian system.
So tell me again, at the museum, you a translator? Is that?
We're translators, that's what we're doing.
So what part of the museum are you at when you go there? Is there a room?
Well, actually, we used to go there in the section that things like this are done. But with the metro, it isn't so comfortable anymore. So we come home now, translate and put it on a computer right on the disk.
What was your rank in the Army?
I was as much as a corporal, and they wanted to promote me if I would stay any longer, after combat. And I said, when I have enough points, I go home. And I did.
Can you comment on, Hitler's belief of ridding the Jewish race? It wasn't just the Jews. He was getting rid of other people too, right?
Yes, he did. Homosexuals and things like that. It's ridiculous to even think that this was something that would be desirable. Of course it wasn't.
And why do you think he felt he needed to do that?
Well, that's what he believed in. He put it out front and told the German people, this is it.
And his beliefs that there was only one race, or?
Absolutely, the Jews had to be killed. They had to be eliminated.
And as a Jew yourself, how do you look at that in retrospect of God's chosen people, good versus evil? I mean, how do you see that all happen?
I absolutely knew that what he put out was wrong, and I forgot about. I tried to eliminate it.
What would you say to people today that are saying it never happened?
They're ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, there's too much proof.
There is a case right now where I forgot the name. It was in the newspaper. There was one politician who, or a priest, who said it never happened.
You got shot in the wallet?
Yes, I still have the wallet. Shrapnel went through the wallet.
Is that the $1 million wound?
Well, not quite that much. Look, I got wounded, went to the next building where I was in the first platoon where the second platoon was, and he, according to the rules, he bandaged me with sulfur and all this, wound up in the field hospital, and there, when I remember where they operated on me to remove the shrapnel, and I heard somebody saying, "Who do we have here? Katzenstein." I mean, I said, he pronounced this in perfect German. And it was one of the field hospitals I was in, originally hospital of German prisoners of war. I mean, I had some experiences there too.
So your family fled in '39, you said?
No, different members. With my parents, we left in '39.
37.
Huh? Yeah, 37 we left
37.
Germany to go to Holland. And we left Holland in '39.
It just seems, so many years ago. Does it seem like 60 years or more, or does it seem like yesterday sometimes, some of these memories?
The memories stayed with me. Doesn't have, yeah.
So tell me now, I've asked the others, living in this country, what does freedom mean to you, Werner?
To me, freedom means that I can now, I remember this, when we crossed from Germany into Holland, and my father said, "You can now say anything you feel like and nobody can do anything to you."
Well, I know we're kind of jumping around from, the Holocaust to the world, your service in the war and all that, but did you say that there were members of your family that were taken away into the camps?
Yes, there were a number of them that never came back.
And you found out years later, or how did you find out?
We eventually, most of these things got known. It took quite a while. For instance, we knew that they had been put into a camp, but initially we didn't even know which camp they had gone to, and we found out that later.
And so there were quite a few. Were there brothers and sisters, or?
But one was a sister of my father's with husband, and two of my cousins. And I know, for instance, my mother's father went with us, came with us to Holland, and he died in Holland. My father's father died in Germany, but he also was kicked out of his house and had no medical care.
When you go through the museum and you see the video, the film of Hitler and the Germans and marching and all that stuff, what do you think about when you see all that?
Well, now that I'm aware of what actually took place, these things actually don't mean that much. See it, but it means much less, actually.
Then what?
What took place.
Oh, you mean it doesn't, what he's saying
Yeah,
is
I
what
know.
he sees doesn't reflect what happened.
It really doesn't tell the story, right?
Right.
Like seeing a movie. It's like seeing a movie.
Yeah.
Well, it's like in combat. When people watch movies about combat, one of the things missing is the smell of war. You can't get that through a movie.
No.
Probably the same thing with what happened.
Look,
But,
you went.
I asked I think I asked Kurt the question, you know, when people walk through the museum and they see pictures of little kids, they see piles of shoes, they see ovens,
Yeah.
it's like, what do you think they're supposed to understand through all that?
Well, it's to teach the coming generations what actually took place, so they don't forget.
Well, let me ask you a few more questions, and we'll be done here with you, Werner. But are you proud to be a World War II veteran?
Oh, absolutely. And I tell you, I get the respect of other people who they said, thank you for serving.
How does that make you feel when they thank you?
Oh, makes me feel proud.
Have you ever had anybody come up to you and say, well, you sure sound like you're German, and then you've got the World War II
Yeah.
hat on, and you have to explain that story all the time?
Yeah, not too often.
Yeah. Does the American flag have a special meaning and significance to you?
Well, today, this is my flag.
So do you consider yourself a German, an American? What?
I am I'm an American citizen. You know, my wife has one statement where people will say, what are you, a Jew or a German or an American? I'm a Jew by religion, but a German or American by nationality.
So when you were fighting in the war, I already asked you this, but it wasn't difficult to be fighting the Germans because
Not at all, not for a
of what they
minute,
stood for. And
not a minute.
so how old are you now, did you say?
I guess I was born 22, so I'm about 76, 86.
Do you have children?
Have three, 2 sons and a daughter.
So what did they think about you and your wife and everything you've gone through and the
It's-
hardships?
They grew up with that. That is part of their life now.
Do you think it's important that our young people learn about what happened in the Holocaust and
Oh,
World War II?
Absolutely.
Why do you think that's important?
It's important that things like that, I'm afraid, could happen again, and that everybody will stand for that it won't happen again.
I don't usually talk about politics in any of my interviews. I leave that out. But I'm going to ask you a question. How do you feel about our country now going forward?
Well, I hope that the country will go forward and that we all will be, how shall I say it, think of America first.
Is there anything else, Werner, about your World War II experience, or maybe a survivor story or the Holocaust that maybe I didn't ask you that you'd like to tell me?
Not really. I mean that I survived. Somebody said you are a survivor twice. You survived the Holocaust, and you survived combat and fighting. And again, I have to thank God for that He let me live.
You know, that's a question I can ask any of the survivors or yourself, is why do you think you made it and a lot of people didn't make it back?
There's no question for that. I mean, it's the Lord taking care of me. That I firmly believe in that.
Someday when you're gone, what do you want your family to remember about you?
To be proud of the things that I was able to do. That's all.
Are you afraid of dying?
No. When the time comes, the time comes.
How about when you were a young man in the war? Were you afraid of dying?
Look, I was in combat. I didn't know whether I was going to survive.
Did you lose any friends during the war that were killed or wounded?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Even from my own company, the B Company of the 399th Infantry, we had a reunion. We had reunions every year until recently, because most of us are not getting any younger, and some of them pass on every so often. And I think last year we had the last reunion. Not many of us came there anymore.
When you were in combat, did you ever get really close to the German army?
I go back again to the city of Heilbronn, and we were fighting in the garrison, in the factory. And I remember that I had to yell in German. All German soldiers would come out with raised hands.
Can you say that in German? What does that sound like?
Alle deutschen Soldaten mit erhobenen Händen rauskommen. And they did. We had one example was there was the Hitler Youth. They came out, and this again goes back to Heilbronn in that area. Yeah.
Well, tell me about the Hitler Youth. What is that? A group of young people that are
the young people,
brainwashed, or what?
teenagers now. They grew up that way. They didn't know any different, and at the end they had no choice.
So they were a young group?
They were
a bunch of them? Or?
Teenagers just before 20. After that they became SA and SS. But they were part of the Nazi Party.
Can you tell me what the SS were, who they were?
SS were actually were in different kinds. Some of them were guards in concentration camps. Some of them were actually there. Initially, they started out to protect Hitler and his staff, but then they had the SA. They had other parts where they were active.
Were they the most? Were they the toughest of the Germans? Or
supposedly.
What does the word Nazi mean?
Comes from Nationalsozialistische Arbeiterpartei, National Socialist Workers' Party. That was originally the party that Hitler was standing for. That's an abbreviation, Nazi.
Are there Nazis today that are living? Or are they referred to as Nazis today?
Probably not. They still find a few here and there that were illegally entered the United States, but I guess there are a few.
You know, in the United States, aren't there groups like white supremacist groups? Aren't those Nazi groups?
I imagine there are some.
How about the swastika? Where did that come from?
Well, it's just, what shall we say? It's just an emblem that they used that the people could tell who they were. I don't know how you feel about the Battle of Heilbronn, that poem that I wrote.
Well, she scanned it for me.
Okay.
And you wrote that obviously after the battle.
Yes.
Now you said you were, what kind of rifle did you carry, an M1?
M1.
Yeah. Did you ever have to shoot anybody with that?
I was shooting at them, but I don't know whether I hit them. Never got that close.
I still think it's an amazing story you have. And I want to thank you for serving our
Look,
country.
I'm here. And that's what the biggest thing for me is that I survived.